Update. Wondering if I should put my story out there. Here it is, guys. Feel free to private message me. It took a lot of courage to admit my own mistakes in this. If I remember anything that I left out, I will gradually update, but for the most part it's all there to the best of my knowledge and memory. TLDR. So this little not really post starts in August of 2023. I was sent along with the rest of my battalion to 29 Palms, California. My M21 wife F21 had known each other for 13 years middle school and were best friends before we dated for 2 of the 13 years. We had grown up about 5 minutes apart, and although we went to different schools, she went public, and I was private school in the deep south of Mississippi, we had a lot of mutual friends, so we were constantly with each other because of our social circles. So that brings us to about January of 2023. She and I were having some marital problems at the time, a year and a half before they had moved up to my duty station because she had our oldest child and we had recently gotten married. The first month or so was great, and then everything seemed to change. I had grown used to the monotony of life and being a dad. All the while she was struggling with postpartum depression (PPD). About the first month she had discovered she was pregnant with our second child. I was elated to say the least. So the days and weeks go by, and throughout her pregnancy I had been split with being a good father, husband, and Marine. I'd wake up, go to work, deal with the B.S. a Grunt 0311 infantry deals with during the workday, come home and immediately start to clean and not all but most of the time cook supper. As the due date got closer for our youngest, her attitude turned. Suddenly I wasn't doing enough and we were in constant heated arguments. After the birth, her attitude got slightly better, but not by much. I kept doing what I thought was more than enough all the way to the time that I left. Her thing was, I'd rather divorce you than cheat on you. Well, one night we got into such a heated argument that she told me she thought about cheating, and it really opened my eyes. Fast forward to about 3 weeks before my departure to California. She has mentioned that she had been really depressed and wanted to go back home and see family about 9 days before I was set to leave the state. Begrudgingly I agreed, since I thought it was in her best interest, and that was when I should have seen the real problem. About 10 days in out of 45 we come back from on operation in the middle of the California desert, and I go to the Warriors Club. Some of you will know what I am talking about. While I'm there, she tells me that she had something to talk to me about. She asks for an open marriage, nothing, but to just have someone to spend time with that isn't each other. I blow my top to the point of almost throwing up at her request. When I tell her no, she does a 180. She says that she was more or less informing me of what she was going to do rather than ask my permission or for my insight. Then proceeds to not talk to me for the rest of the day. Over the course of the next 3 weeks, she stopped talking to me essentially. When we would talk, it would mainly be her getting annoyed with me and threatening to serve me with separation papers upon my return home. I only got to see my kids for 10 to 15 minutes each day, as that was all the time she wanted to let me call her. I should also add that I started and really picked up on doing the little things again in our relationship. Like texting her good morning and asking her how her day was and such. To no avail, might I add. Well, when she would go to bed she would FaceTime me so I could tell my kids good night, and I asked if she was sleeping with another man. I should also add that we had 2 other people staying in our house because of my mortgage being raised. Sarah F20 was a friend of mine and my wife's for about 6 years at this point. Sarah was basically my little sister that I never had, and she was fiercely loyal to us both. Another Amber F22 was a close friend of mine at the time's girlfriend. The whole time since I got back from that one operation, Amber had been telling me what all my wife was doing and with whom. When I confronted Sarah about it, she claimed that my wife was being faithful. One night I asked my wife to show me who all was at the house. She immediately went on the defense and started berating me to the point of verbal abuse. When I asked her to show me the house on camera so I could see who all was there, she would tell me to go F off and hang up. Amber texted me one day and told me to check my driveway security camera between a certain time. I'd be damned if I didn't see another Marine leaving my house and kissing my wife goodbye. I immediately called PMO military police, as it is illegal for a Marine or service member to cheat or have a romantic relationship with a married woman or man. I, being a decent hobbyist mechanic, told the staff sergeant who picked up that the guy leaving my house was PMO and that he drove this particular kind of foreign coupe-style car, and had a tattoo sleeve on this particular arm. After this phone call I left for another operation. When I come back a few days later and get my phone back, we weren't allowed to take them. I get a barrage of messages asking how I could make trumped up charges on someone who was only a friend, and another text from a First Sergeant E-8 who told me to call him. I called the 1STSGT and told him any information and emailed him the proof I had. He said he would look into it and call me back at a later date. Afterward, I am up every morning at 3 a.m. because of the time difference recording him as he leaves. I even get a little petty one morning and change the password to the security system and remotely arm it so that I will set off a loud noise as he leaves, and when she would go to put the pin in, it would not work. The whole time this was going on, I was not eating or sleeping. I would eat every 3 days and sleep every 4 or 5 days. The only thing I had in terms of food were Camel Crush menthols 3 packs a day and God only knows how many energy drinks. On top of my sleeping and eating habits, she would text her sister and another close friend of hers a pic of a random guys. She would go on to say that she was doing all these things with them and how much better they were than me. Her favorite insult to use for a while after I got back, they, obviously, would come back to me, and I would confront my wife. She would deny it and state that it was a test to see who her real friends were, on account of her seeing if they would tell me what they would discuss. The friend and her sister would show me the messages between my wife and these tatted, jacked guys, and it got me even more depressed on account of my own body insecurities. She even told me she hopes that the helicopter I was taking out on a raid the next day crashes and burns with me trapped inside it so she doesn't have to talk to me again and that I can leave her alone. Over that time period I went from sad, depressed, and hurt to not caring for her other than the fact she gave me my beautiful children. Fast forward to about 4 days before we leave, Sarah calls me hysterical. She says she's so sorry for what she is about to tell me, but my wife had been cheating on me for about the time I got back from the operation where everything went sideways. She had been seeing and sleeping with about, in her own estimations, 7 to 8 men, mostly one-night stands, but the one I caught leaving my house had been staying there for 3 weeks. I go red and say some things I probably shouldn't, and at the end of our phone call, she tells me to expect a phone call from Texas. A few minutes goes by, I got the call, and wouldn't you know it? It was the guy leaving my house. He's very apologetic and says he genuinely didn't know. He goes on to say that my wife Ad went throughout the house and taken down and replaced all of our photos, hid my clothes, told him that I was an ex-fiancé who broke it off right before I left, and the worst of all, told him that our kids were not even hers. He asked for some leniency because he also had a baby on the way from a previous relationship on the way. I could hear the fear in this man's voice, and after dealing with interrogators on our last deployment workup I could tell he was being genuine. Well, shortly after that I got a call from my mother. She tells me that I need to call my wife because she is not okay. So I call, and he admits to everything while being almost incomprehensible. She told me she was sorry for everything, and that she had a gun in her hand. I obviously freak out because no one is at my house other than my wife, and call the local sheriff's office. I then spend the next 4 hours coordinating with the EMTs, sheriff's deputies, and my wife. Then I am finally able to leave California 4 days later. Over the course of a few weeks after I get back home, we go back and forth getting into argument after argument. The AP and I actually became good friends and drinking buddies because when he came to apologize to me, he called my wife out on her BS, saying that she was a horrible woman, wife, and that our kids, he put a lot of emphasis on that one, he deserved a better woman and that he had hoped that I would leave her. I should add that because my wife didn't tell him she was married, he almost came close to spending some time in military jail and getting a dishonorable discharge. A couple of days after that I was in my head and grabbed her phone while she was asleep one night and downloaded her Snapchat data, sent it to myself in an email, and deleted all traces of it off of her phone. What a treasure trove I have discovered here. It showed me names, times, and the conversations, but it wouldn't show me images that were sent between her and said guys. She was with a lot of other guys, and I realized that what Sarah had said was right. There were numerous affair partners. I tracked them all down, and after some reassurance from me saying I don't want to pursue any legal action against them, they opened up. The narrative they told me was very consistent with the one that she had told the main AP. But she had been with, counting main AP, at least 5 guys, 2 have yet to reach out to me. Which now leads me to my current dilemma. I do love my wife, but not in the way I should as a spouse. I had met a few females online when I was in California, and with all of these things going on I just wanted to talk to people to take my mind off of things. Close to my time to leave, I had gotten to the anger stage, and over the course of the next few months had proceeded to send explicit photos and messages to a few of these women. My wife found out in December of 2023 and we had a huge fight. She had gone to therapy after a few weeks of me being back and was doing a lot better mentally, but I, however, was not. The only reason I did what I did was to feel even on some level and make her feel the pain and anguish that I had felt. I felt that talking about my problems to someone didn't help me, as I was constantly in the chaplain's office while I was there and even attended a few therapy sessions of my own. Work was not going my way and I just felt a void. The only thing that kept me grounded were my kids, my dogs, and a few amazing friends that I will forever owe my life to. She recently caught me with photos of one of the other women that I quite honestly forgot about and told me she would take my kids away and that they deserve a parent who values and treats their mother like a queen. We got into it and I threw the fact that she told some of her affair partners that our kids weren't hers. Do I know what I did was wrong? Yes, 1000%. Do I regret it now? Yes I do. But I still feel like I love my wife because she bore my kids and not as a spouse. I know, some, if not most of y'all will tell me I'm a terrible person for what I did and I should have divorced her instead of playing mind games. It's not that simple. I go out for training exercises constantly that are 5 days long at a minimum, not to mention I am in a deployable status. I would never get to see my kids as long as I am in my current MOS job, and I just signed a re-enlistment contract for another 4 years. Not to mention, part of me wanted to make her hurt as bad as I did. Thank you for letting me share.